Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Bald Brothers podcast. I appreciate you guys joining us. And today we wanted to talk about dreams and goals and all things surrounding what we're striving for in life. So to kick off the conversation, what dreams are you currently chasing right now? And have you found that you're able to stay motivated chasing those dreams? And
Yeah,
let's just maybe start there.
sure. My dream, and I think it's like, well, for a long time was to grow a beard. And
Yep.
I think after doing that, I kind of committed myself to 2 years, and then it evolved to 3 years of just putting Rogaine and minoxidil on my face to eventually grow a beard. And it seems like a really silly dream to have, but I've always wanted a beard because I thought, all the cool guys in the movies and the action stars, they all have beards, and I knew that I was going to be losing my hair. So it's like I wanted to use it as like a coping mechanism. And the funny thing enough is that after I got the beard, I realized that actually being bald without a beard isn't so bad. So, but I think that what really taught me was that, if you commit yourself to something for long enough and, continue on in the face of, putting on minoxidil and especially derma rolling is not fun. It hurts a lot, feels like a bad sunburn. And if you continue to do it, over time, even what you might think is impossible, like me growing a beard as an Asian man, becomes actually quite feasible. And now that I have it, it's like, wow, well, what else can I go after? So I think my next dream is to get a board game. I don't care about selling it. I just want to have something that I made, that I created with the rules and everything, how to play it in my hand. And I think that would be like the next thing. So have
Yeah,
yourself.
I think those are both great goals. I'll jump into mine in a minute, but I wanted to ask you for somebody who is maybe recognizing that they have a goal, maybe they have something in mind, like, oh, it'd be really cool to maybe same as you, maybe they want to grow a beard or whatever it is. Sometimes the hardest part is just knowing where to start and how to get started.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be directly related to those things, but
Yeah.
what do you think helps just get the ball moving in the right direction?
I mean, it's different for everyone. Like, I think the thing that kind of kickstarted me is like, A, how long do I want to wait to actually even start? Putting that frame of reference and thinking like, well, and I think it helped with the beard because it's like, I want a beard today. And the quickest way to get a beard today is to have started 2 years ago. So now I'm already 2 years behind. So how do I treat myself for future, you know, monkey beard? Like, how do I get that beard? So I just like it has to be now, right? Uh, and then the other thing is like a lot of people get stuck, and myself included, is like this analysis paralysis. So you can think about all the nuances and stuff, but you actually don't know what the real like landscape of your dream is going to be until you actually start making those steps. Like you can think about what it would be like to walk to the store, but if you never leave your house, you actually never know like what's the weather going to be actually going to be like. You can look on your phone and try to pretend like you might know and look out the window, but you don't know if like there's a gust of wind during this certain wind tunnel. You don't know if you're going to meet some rando people on the street that are going to maybe hassle you. But so long as you have that goal in mind and actually start making steps toward it, then it can actually become possible. I keep wrapping back to this idea of like, intention plus action is what actually creates anything, right? You can't go to the gym and like expect to lift 1,000 pounds if you never believe in it, and you can't lift 1,000 pounds if you never go to the gym. So, and I think the last bit is just imperfect consistency is better than perfect execution. So long as you're consistent in making steps towards your goal, even if it's imperfect, that's actually more perfect than trying to perfect everything in your head and then trying to execute upon that plan because it'll never be perfect. Um,
Yep. Yeah, I think perfectionism gets in the way of for a lot of people, right?
yeah,
The
I think.
idea that, well, if I'm going to do this, it has to be 100% perfect. Otherwise,
Mhm.
what's the point?
Yeah,
When in reality, sometimes just taking the steps towards your goal, maybe it isn't perfect, but the amount of things that you'll learn along the way and how much growth you'll have just striving towards that goal, you may end up achieving it, but in many cases, it's not going to be exactly how you initially envisioned it.
hmm,
But there's going to be so much growth and progress on the way to that goal.
yeah,
I mean, I'm just So for me, yeah, one of my more recent goals was obviously doing this type of thing, creating content. Specifically, my goal was to help as many guys as possible to kind of cope and deal with hair loss. And I know you have
Yeah, same.
similar goal, and part of that too is the beard journey as well for you. But just the idea that I had in my mind at the beginning of when I started this has definitely kind of transformed. And what I started about a year ago making videos, and it's pretty cool to just look back and be like, you know what, I just took little steps every day,
Yeah.
making videos, and now I can kind of look back. And even though of course, I'd like to be, further along in terms of like followers and subscribers, looking back and just seeing, wow, I made, a couple hundred videos on TikTok and a
Yeah.
bunch of videos on YouTube, and made connections. You and I
Yeah.
connected with some other people as well throughout this journey. So there's things that came up that were unexpected,
Hmm.
um, that I've really enjoyed as just
Yeah.
part of this journey. And I think that's where people get stuck a lot of times, is they have this big lofty goal in mind,
Yeah.
and they go, okay, this is it, I've got it, I've got the goal, I know what I want to do. And then they get, they have some motivation for maybe a week, and then they're not seeing quite as much progress as they'd like, so
Yeah.
they give up, or maybe a month. And part of it is just kind of falling in love with the process
Yeah.
of whatever your goal is. So I like the idea of, you may have that big lofty goal in mind, but breaking it down into some simple like daily steps that you can
Yeah.
take, and then falling in love with those daily steps, and just being
Mhm.
like feeling good about, hey, I did this thing today.
Yeah.
This was part of the journey to get to my goal, and
Hmm.
I did that thing today.
Yeah.
So in terms of like growing a beard, I'm curious, like daily steps for that, I'd imagine would be, like you said, derma rolling and applying minoxidil and things
Yeah.
like
I think.
that. That's a simple thing to do each day, and you can
Yeah.
feel good about just doing it that day, right?
Yeah. I think the big thing that helped me along the way is like constantly affirming that your goal is like manifesting itself, like brick by brick. In terms of the beard, it's like seeing the baby hair starting to grow. I was like, wow, it's working, and
Yeah.
like constantly affirming myself, like, it's working, right? Even when it's like, I'm stagnating, but maybe this is part of the process, and I just don't know it, that this is part of it. And that is like, for at least for the beard growth, there's like a shedding phase. I'm kind of going through that right now. It's like where you feel like you like just took like a million steps backwards, but it's all part of the process because just like your hair on your head, right? It goes through shedding and growth stages. So, and every time I'd lose, like go through the shedding process, like actually it might feel like I'm taking steps back, but this means that the more resilient, permanent hairs are going to come in, and that's part of the process. That's a good thing,
Yeah, and I would say part of the journey is always going to be setbacks. If you
Yeah,
have a goal that you're working on, there are going to be setbacks. Absolutely, they may be. Most of them are going to be unforeseen setbacks.
yeah,
But if you actually think of that as part of the journey,
hmm,
then it almost feels, you can kind of reframe it in your mind and say, this is actually progress.
yeah,
Like these setbacks, because I know that setbacks are going to be part of the journey, you can actually look at that as progress. Go, okay, I
Good.
got the setback number one. Now I got the setback number two,
Yeah.
and you're just moving through. And that's where you grow the most too, is during the setback.
There was like a funny meme that I read, and it's like I was played a lot of video games growing up, and it's like if I played a lot of video games, and if there's anything that I realized, that when you experience enemies, then you're going in the right direction. Like, oh
Mm,
yeah,
I love
so
that. Speaking of video games, there's a video game that I just like so strongly attribute to this whole idea of goal setting.
yeah,
I don't know if you ever played World of Warcraft.
yeah, a little bit. That's a good one.
So the original version, vanilla World of
Mhm.
Warcraft, was pretty notorious for like the leveling journey from like 1 to level 60
Yeah, it was a
is
grind.
a big grind.
Yeah,
And what they did such a good job in designing that game of is, you had that big lofty goal of like getting to level 60, but it was pretty clear what you had to do along the way, through all the quests, and they direct you into different zones, and um, yeah, it would kind of lead you to find more quests and more things that you could do.
yeah,
And they did such a good job of triggering that feeling of accomplishment just enough to keep you motivated to get to that end goal.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it's really tough in just in normal life for a lot of people to find that just enough motivation, just enough feeling of accomplishment when they're striving towards their real life goal. And that's again, not to drill the point home too hard, but why I really like the idea of, feeling like a sense of accomplishment for doing the daily thing that you said you were going to do or weekly thing that you said you were going to do. It may not be the whole goal, but it's part of the process, and feeling good about, hey, I completed, maybe you're training for a marathon.
Sure.
Hey, I did my 2 mile run today. I did my 5 mile run today, whatever it is. Just feeling good about that step.
Could you, like, for people who haven't played World of Warcraft, could you explain what the little achievements of accomplishment look like in the game, and then how it might translate into like a real life scenario?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about that game all day. So that was, the game came out when I was in high school, and it
Sure.
just became an obsession for me. So what they did a really good job of is like I said, those little feats of accomplishment that you would achieve. So it might be just gaining a level. So maybe you're level 10, and then you level up to level 11. You just get that little hit of dopamine. Your character kind of like flashes. You get like a new talent point that you can decide where you want to put that in your talent tree, so you can skill up your character. So that would be one example of kind of that feeling of accomplishment. Just every time you level up, you kind of get that rush of like, okay,
Yeah.
I got to the next level. Again, there's 60 levels in total, so there's a lot of that throughout and they get progressively harder. Like you need more experience, you have to do more things to get to each next level. So it feels progressively harder, but not so hard that you can't do it. Another example would be just completing like a quest or a series of quests where maybe you get to a new town, you collect 5 different quests where they tell you to go, you need to go kill these 10 things and you need to collect these 15 things.
Mm-hmm.
You go off and do that, complete those quests, and then you get that other kind of dopamine hit, that feeling of completion, accomplishment when you come back. And if you got like 10 quests to complete all at once, that there's no better feeling than that. You turn them all in, you get a boost of experience, and
Yeah.
it's a good feeling. So there was, whether it was like leveling up was always a good feeling of accomplishment, but yeah, just in between levels, turning in quests and accomplishing those things just kind of
Micro goals.
kept you motivated to
Sure.
keep going. Yeah. And that's why it was so addicting. You would just get those dopamine hits. So again, how that translates into real life, I'd say maybe if you can recognize where you get those little hits of dopamine or feelings of accomplishment, could be in the form of a reward. I have a friend who's like obsessed with like chocolate and candy, and so they use that as like a motivator. Like, okay, I did my workout for the day, so I get like a Twix
Hmm.
bar, like a Twix mini, or like or Kit
Sure.
Kat, or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, normally I would feel a little guilty if I ate this candy bar, but since I did my workout today, then I can feel good about it. So that just finding those little things, those things that you really love to do or love to eat or whatever it is, maybe that's a reward system for meeting that daily task that you've kind of assigned yourself. So do you have any ideas on how to kind of bring that feeling of accomplishment into your real life goals? So it's not
Yeah.
just once you hit that final goal, but just to keep you motivated along the journey.
And I'm not gonna, sugarcoat it. There's times where I feel and felt like, is the juice worth the squeeze? And that goes for the YouTube channel. This goes for TikTok. This goes for the board game, and this definitely went for the beard growth. Like there was times where I would, ask my wife, it's like, is it actually making progress? And it's like, yes, it's moving forward. And I think what really helps me, at least in the beard category, and I'm trying to implement it in the other aspects, is like taking progress pics, because you really don't remember. Like I don't even remember what I wore yesterday. I don't even remember. Definitely don't remember what I wore like 2 weeks ago, and you don't really remember what you used to look like, and how much progress you've actually made. So kind of making like milestones that you can hit, and then trying to do like reflection about, okay, I'm here today, and I was like a year ago, I looked like this, or my dream or my passion looked like this a year ago. Kind of puts things into perspective of how many steps you actually have taken. Taking a look back and saying like, I'm actually, significantly further towards my goal than I was, a month ago. Helps kind of say, all right, I can think I can go a little bit further. I don't know if you ever like ran a mile. I hate running. Like it's the worst thing for me. Like I'd much rather lift like 400 pounds than run a mile. But
I used to run cross country, so
okay,
I got all the running out of my system
okay.
many years ago.
I never had it in my system, so there's that. Like for me, like in order to run the mile for school or PE or sometimes people are like, you want to go for a run? It's like fine. It was always like I look at like the tree like ahead of me, and I'd be like, all right, if I can make it to that tree, I'm doing okay. And then I'd make it to the tree. It's like, all right, that means I actually like ran a significant portion. If I can make it to the end of the sidewalk, then I'll be doing good. And I kept on doing that over and over again, and that eventually I'm done with a mile. But I'm tired, but at least it's done. It's behind me now. And I think that mentality has helped me, and I kind of exercise that whenever I'm trying to a new goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just finding that little goal posts along the way to your big goal,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
They're kind of
You
using
kind
like,
of
but
you kind of reminded me of a book I read called Show Your Work.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And have you read this?
Yes, but complete
Okay.
for the audience.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the idea is the main takeaway that I remember from the book, I probably should reread it, is kind of documenting your journey along the way to your goal, which you've been doing with your beard growth. Is that was your goal to grow a beard, and so you've been, in some ways documenting the progress that you've made. And that does, I think, two things for you. One is then you can easily go back and look at the progress, because you can go back to that first video when you first started the journey and say, wow, I actually have come a lot further than I realized. And even though maybe today I was feeling really unmotivated because I mean, there was some shedding going on, or, I thought I was losing all this progress, but in reality, I've come so much further
Yeah.
than I realized, because it's so easy to forget how far we've come, because we always talking about goalposts. We always move the goalposts for ourselves. So we say like, I just want, just this. If I could just get this, I'd be happy. And then you get that. And then you go, okay, well, now on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Uh,
There's like that phrase. It's like at the top of a mountain is more mountains.
yeah. Right. Yeah. And again, I mean, that's all part of the journey. And just knowing, I think sometimes just knowing that is really helpful, because that, using that same mountain analogy, have you ever done a hike with like a false peak, and you're looking up and you're so tired and you're like, wow, we're almost there. There's the peak right there. And then you get to the ridge and then you realize it was a false peak and it's actually like another mile up.
Yeah. Great.
And that actually kind of kills your motivation, because you thought you were about to get to your goal and then realized you had a little bit further to go, and you kind of had this whole mental commitment to this particular spot, then realizing, oh, there's more to go. So sometimes just knowing ahead of time, hey, you're doing this hike, there's going to be a false peak, so just be ready for it, because you're going to think you're at the top, but you actually are going to have another mile to go. If you know that ahead of time, that does so much more for your mentality. So again, just knowing there's going to be setbacks along your journey can kind of help you deal with them more easily. It's still going to be tough, but at least that like what the expectations are.
It makes me think of, and you work with clients, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know the phrase like under promise, over deliver? Yeah, and I think I use that on myself. Like I've been a consultant for many years, and it's like under promise, over deliver. It's like under promise that peak that you think is actually going to be the peak, but then if it so happens to be the peak, then great, you're there. But if it's not, then it's like, all right, well, I already knew that it wasn't going to be, so that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, because I think a lot of it just comes down to your attitude, towards things. Like we've all been on a trip or something where there's that super bummer person, and there's like a phrase in like the army where it's like, complaining doesn't do anything. It just makes things worse for everyone else, because you're all in it together, right? So you telling yourself how badly you're feeling doesn't help anyone, because they're all in the same situation as you. I think that's kind of like a big one, is just making sure that you have a good attitude about your dream. And why wouldn't you? It's your dream. Why would you want to poo poo your own dream? Because that only hurts yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you're only going to have regret if you don't try
Hmm.
to
Agree.
achieve that dream or that goal. And there's really no downside to just trying
Hmm.
because you'll find out two things. One, either you really do want that goal and you're going to work towards it, or two, things change and maybe you say, you know what, that actually isn't what I wanted after all.
Yeah.
But then you'll at least know that you took the steps to go towards it and decided that maybe that wasn't it. And that allows you to then move on to what your real goal or what your next goal is going to be, because otherwise you'll just have that in the back of your mind that I never at least tried. I never at
Yeah.
least tried to achieve that. I was working on writing a book. That was a goal of mine a while
Yeah.
back, several years ago. And I kind of set the daily tasks for myself where I said I would write at least one page every day. And I was pretty consistent with that and kind of got to the point where the first draft at least was pretty much done. And then I realized I needed to go back and re-edit, do a lot of rewriting because it just didn't flow very well, and it wasn't a lot of parts just didn't read as well as I wanted them to. But I kind of got to the point where I said, you know what, I don't really have much interest in going
Hmm.
back to do that. And part of me was like, man, I kind of gave up on my dream there.
Hmm.
But another part of me was, no, I mean, I wrote the whole book. I kind of had this idea for a book in my mind and I wrote it all out and I realized, hey, I took the steps towards it and you know what? It's not really as fulfilling for me as I originally thought it would be.
Hmm.
But if I had never done that, I'd probably still be saying, ah, man, I should really get to writing that book.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe that goal, that idea will come back to me again in the future. But I kind of, did everything I could towards meeting that goal, and said, you know what, I did as much as I wanted to do, and now I can move on.
Do you was it painful to let go of what you thought was your dream? And then B, was it like, do you have any regrets like now that you've gone through it and then let it go, you know?
It really wasn't painful to say, you know what, I'm going to step away from this. The only part that felt a little bit painful was in order to kind of keep myself accountable, I had told a few people that I was working on this book. And so whenever I would see those people, they would say, hey, how's the book going? And so I'd have to say, well, I got to this point and I decided that, I didn't want to continue with it. And so that was a little painful, I guess, just to have to be like, well, I sort of moved on from it whenever but, they asked me, one time. And once I told them, hey, I've moved on, then they didn't bring it up again. So it wasn't really that painful, but that's kind of the only thing I can think of where I was kind of like, you know,
And within yourself, like how did you know that it was not for you anymore?
that's a good question. Let's see if I can kind of put that into words. I mean, it really just was a feeling of I've written out this whole first draft, and I had, for years I had this idea for this book in mind, and so just getting it all down on paper, kind of getting it out of my head and into words, and knowing that I had kind of pushed through some of those days where like I didn't really feel like writing, but I had kind of said, okay, I'm going to do at least a page a day, and I had kept that commitment to myself, and then getting to the point where the book was written and just having this feeling of, you know what, I think I've fulfilled whatever it was that feeling I had inside. And so the idea of going back to rewrite and edit, it just didn't feel like it would be fulfilling for me.
Sure.
And maybe that's the word I'm looking for, is I didn't think there would be any further fulfillment in doing that.
Did
And so I was ready
you
to move on from it.
did you ever get the sense like, ah, I wasted a bunch of time, or like I used up all this energy and there was nothing to really show for it at the end?
It didn't feel like a waste of time at all because it really did clear things up for me where I always had that nagging thought in the back of my mind, like, oh, I really want to write this book. And so it actually cleared up some mental capacity for me where I was no longer had that question mark in my mind of, oh, can I do this? Can I write this book? So it actually, yeah, quite the contrary. It was a little bit more freeing to be able to like, okay, now I can move on to what's my next goal. Sorry, move on to what's my next goal. What's the next thing I want to do?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious. Do you have any similar experiences, like a goal that you really thought that you wanted at one point, and then maybe somewhere along the journey you said, I think this isn't quite right.
Yeah, I think. Well, I'm like ADHD when it comes to passions. Like every 6 months it changes.
I'm with you on that. Yeah, it's tough.
Like I thought, I'm gonna try like bike packing. That seems cool. But I built the bike. Like, my bike looks awesome. And I even get comments like, "Hey, you come out from out of town?" It's like, no, I just use my grocery hauler now. But the goalposts change. It's like, all right, maybe I don't need to go like bike to the whole Pacific Coast Trail to get that itch scratched. But being able to carry a bunch of stuff and not having to spend gas, and I get to bike with my brother, to get to the grocery store, and we chit chat, we get some Burger King, and like haul the groceries back. It's like that's all I really wanted out of this.
Yeah,
And then yeah, I think that was one where it's like sometimes you think the goal poses way out in left field, but it's actually you only need to go to the first base before you're like, actually this is all I really wanted. And again, after doing that, it's like, all right, I can move on to the next thing. And the skills that I learned from doing that, like that's where I learned like, what, I really like just tweaking things, like modding things. And then I started working on my car, right? You know, I wanted it to make it look maybe super riced out, and now it's like, yeah, actually, just like stock plus looks nice. It's like I don't
hmm
need to have like the giant spoiler or the drop the 400 horsepower engine in there.
yeah,
Just a little something to make it more me is all I really care to put on things.
sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you think, one thing I know a lot of people struggle with is, okay, I have a goal in mind and I know that I need to do these daily things or weekly things to try to get to that goal. But
Mhm.
sometimes you do lose motivation and you're kind of faced with a choice of, okay, do I do this daily thing that I'm supposed to do for my goal? Or is this the point where I say, I really don't want to do this? Because there's some, balance to be found of there are some days where I just need to push through
Yeah.
and commit to doing the thing I said I was going to do versus those days where it's like, well, maybe I really don't want this goal as much as I thought
Mhm.
and I need to move on. I know that's something I've struggled with
Yeah.
is, okay, am I not doing this today because I'm just being lazy,
Sure.
or is it because maybe my goals have changed?
I think it's just I would give myself like a weekly like reflection period where, and whether you believe in the Bible or not, I studied it like extensively out of spite for a long time. But even God had to rest on the seventh day, right? And that was like he created the entire universe, if whatever you want to believe, right? And on the seventh day he rested. It's like meaning that he had a point of reflection and be like, is this really what I wanted to do? Oh, these people are like killing each other. I don't know
Yeah.
about that, man.
Did I do this right?
Yeah, did I do this right? Was free will the right thing to do? And I think, I think that law that it's in the Ten Commandments, right, is important. Whether, yeah, again, whether you believe it or not, it's to have a point of rest, right? To take a time to like truly reflect on what you've done, what you've created, and decide whether or not you need to flood the earth or you need to and move on, or do you continue to send another emissary towards that goal, right? Which is the whole idea of the new promise or whatever. Um, and I think it's this to the same effect. It's like, all right, I had moments where it's like, derma rolling sucks. I don't want to keep needling my face every day, but every week I'd look at past pictures. I'd look at how far I've actually come. The fact that I even had facial hair at all. It's like, you know what? Like, this is what I set out to do, and I'm just curious for myself. And I think having that sense of curiosity really just continues to add fuel to the tank. Because if you do things out of, anger, spite, fear, those are all finite emotions. Those types of emotions only last, as long as you feel them. And things like curiosity and love seem to be a lot more enduring. Like, I was just curious at that point, and it's how far can I take this, and how much progress can result from it, and kind of gamifying it in that way really got me through like the days where it's like, I really don't want to do this. The last thing I want to do before, like, I've had a long day, worked 12 hours, is to needle my face and then stick this stinging alcohol on my face to make this work, and then take photos. It's like this is a process, and that I have to do every day.
Yep.
And kind of thinking about this the awfulness of it doesn't really help you. It's just if you kind of reframe and think kind of like a child, like when you're a kid, you're everything's new to you. So then everything has this magic to it. But trying to reclaim that magic for yourself is just kind of part of that journey.
Yeah. 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 I had a couple thoughts as you were
Yeah, of course.
running through that. So there is, different takes on how long it takes for something to become like a habit.
Mhm.
I think some people say like 3 weeks or
Yeah.
20 something days. Could be longer, could be shorter, depending on who you are, what it is. There is something to be said early on about sticking to your word, and kind of on those days where you haven't quite built the habit yet, to power through and do the thing you said you were going to do, even though in the moment you may not feel like it,
Yeah.
to at least give yourself a chance to build the habit. And then once you've gotten to that point where maybe you've been doing it for a month or a couple months and the habit has started to set in, that's when I think you can have a little bit more of like a clear mindset on is this still helping me work towards my goal? Is that goal still the thing that I want, now that you've kind of gotten into a ritual of it?
Yeah.
What helped you kind of stick with, because your goal, it did require some actual physical pain.
Mhm.
It wasn't so much just like for me, oh, I gotta get up a little bit earlier so I can write a page for my book, which I guess is a different physical commitment, getting up a little bit earlier, but not really involving physical pain.
Yeah.
So how did you manage to kind of fight through that? Was the goal just so strong for you, or was it something else?
I mean, pretty sure you can relate to this. Like, before doing the beard stuff, I was a gym rat, and
Hmm.
lifting heavy weights is not a fun, fun prospect at all, and that's equally painful. And I think telling yourself like that, all good things are on the other side of fear, and all good things are on the other side of pain, because you can only have, so much goodness in your life without any bit of pain. If you there's that whole phrase that you can either live take the easy option and then live a hard life, or take the hard choice and have an easy life. You know, Eating Cheetos and watching Netflix for the rest of my life sounds like a great prospect, but then later on my body's going to deteriorate, and later on my life is going to really, really suck. But if I decide, you know what, I'm going to go to the gym today, and I'm not going to eat, I'm going to go eat my vegetables, is not so fun. But later on, it's my future me is gonna really like that, because I'll be more mobile. I mean, that's a big thing. I mean, just I've thrown on my back plenty of times just to say, your mobility is so important.
Oh yeah. And
So
and you brought up another book. Curious if you read this one too. It's called The Slight Edge.
no, but I think I probably heard
You probably heard the concept. It's been written about in other forms in different books. The
yeah,
basic idea is what you were just talking about, where you make small choices every day
yeah,
that are either, net positive or net negative.
mhm,
Many of them you won't notice the impact just doing them once. And the example I always use, because it's simple, is like brushing your teeth. You can do it every day. It's really simple. It takes you maybe a couple minutes twice a day. So it's like a 5-minute commitment for your entire day to just brush your teeth.
yeah,
Really easy to do that, but it's also really easy to not do it,
yeah,
especially at night. Maybe you're tired and you just want to go
yeah,
to bed, and you're like,
or,
I won't do it tonight.
mhm,
Not a big deal if you skip it once. Your teeth are not immediately going to rot and fall out of your head. But if you continue to skip brushing your teeth and you stop doing it, after some months and years, you're going to get more cavities, you're going to have more issues that will impact you in the long term.
yeah,
So if you had taken this again, just as simple, just as easy to do task of brushing your teeth, then you'd have long-term healthier teeth over many years. And you can basically apply that concept to many, many things
mhm,
in life. And I actually give a lot of credit to that book, because I read it pretty early on, I think when I was 18 or something like that.
yeah,
And
it's a
it
good
kind of
one.
got me interested in investing. And I liked the idea of just like something really simple that I could do. It just takes small amounts of money. I mean, I didn't really have much money at that time, but I it got me motivated to like open up a first investing account.
Yeah,
And I just threw a little bit of money. Like I said, I hardly had any, but I threw what I could into this investing account, and I've just been, started slowly contributing to it. because sometimes I do think that I can be a little bit lazy sometimes. So I like the idea of something simple that I can do that I know will have long term, huge benefits.
Yeah.
And so that concept is very motivating to me. Of okay, this task is pretty simple, but I know if I keep it up, that it will benefit me in the long term, because the years just go by quicker and quicker.
I know. So,
And it's really amazing when you look back and say, wow, I actually did a lot this last year.
mhm,
Or maybe, you look back and go, wow, I didn't get as much done as I would have liked to this year.
mhm,
Somebody said, this was written somewhere, but the time is going to pass anyway,
mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Whether you do something or you don't do anything, the time is going to pass.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cliche, but yeah, if you look back, next year, um, are you gonna be happy about the things that you did? Like you said, the best time to start growing a beard was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Second best time would be now. So yeah, if you got something that you've been thinking about that you've had in the back of your mind, best
Yeah.
time to start is now.
It just makes you wonder. It's like what is possible if like for your future self if you start today, right? Because you want to I hope you want to live, at least a few years, right? And starting whatever is today is only going to allow you to achieve that thing in the future. Because if you
Hmm.
never start, then you'll never have it. Maybe by happenstance, but that's like winning the lottery. And I've got enough scratches in my day to know that that's very, very slim.
Yeah, and that's maybe this could be the final kind of topic for this discussion today. In today's world with social media, and there's Amazon, instant delivery. You order a new mouse for your keyboard on Amazon, and it shows up that afternoon.
I know, crazy.
We are in this world of instant gratification,
Mhm.
and that can be really challenging if your goal is something long term that's
Yeah.
going to take a lot of effort, because we're so used to the instant gratification. Do you think that has any impact on people today, especially younger kids, maybe people who are in their early 20s now, who kind of grew up with
The internet.
iPads
Yeah.
and iPhones and having more access to that instant gratification? Do you think that makes things more challenging?
For sure. I think the problem is you see all these people on social media and you like, wow, they have like 1 million followers. Like that's like how would I ever match up to that? But you also have to remember that a lot of these people, like they started again 3 years ago. The time to start building your YouTube channel or building your following would have been 3 years ago, and then you would be there right now. But
Hmm.
and you only see people who have made it. It's like this confirmation bias or what survivor's bias where the people who make it are the people who actually stuck it out, and all that like there's probably thousands, if not millions, of people who tried it and just it didn't go anywhere, right? Or they didn't have the grit to make it through. And I think taking the time to taking stock of where do you want to spend your energy. Do you want to just scroll and just get your instant gratification, get your mouse delivered instantly, or do you want to build something that you're going to be proud about that's actually going to fill your spirit? I think the other thing that really helps is like again having a goal in mind and envisioning how that's going to look. You can use modern technology with the instant gratification to make those goals happen. With AI and stuff, like I've used AI immensely just to achieve new goals, right? If I need help with content, I ask ChatGPT. It's like, well, here, like this is how you can maybe structure it. This, if I wanted to do like a board game, right? Like what steps I asked it, like what steps if you were to help me build a board game, do I need to accomplish? And can you give me like a weekly task list to achieve that goal in a bite-sized manner? And then you can continually tweak it so that it's like, okay, that is a task that I can do on the daily or on the weekly that'll get me to the goal that I want.
Yeah.
Use the technology at hand to get to where you want to be.
Yeah, I love that. That's kind of flipping the script on how technology can be used, because yeah, it does give us that instant gratification, the instant dopamine hit, which keeps you kind of addicted to it. But
Yeah,
you could also use it as a way to expedite reaching your goal.
exactly.
And going back to that show your work concept,
Mhm.
I mean, it's never been easier to document your journey to your goal, and that can help keep you motivated and give you something to look back on. And so I don't know if you've seen this, I've seen a few videos of people talking about using Chat GPT to create their like perfect day.
Yeah,
So you're basically typing in, here's my goals, here's what I want to achieve, here's the timeline I hope to achieve them by. Basically type in as much information as you can to get very like specific on what it is that you're trying to do, and then ask ChatGPT, give me a daily task list
Hmm.
to make sure that I'm working towards these goals that I have.
Yeah.
And then it will literally create, here's your daily list of things to do. And again, kind of circling this all together, having a daily list that if you like, okay, I did those three things that I got from Chat GPT, or however you create your daily list. But then you can have that feeling of accomplishment
Hmm.
every day,
Yeah.
knowing that you did those things and that you have it's clearly working towards these goals that you've set for yourself.
Yeah. It's your quest list, right? You're turning
You're
in your quests, and then eventually you'll
really are
level
bringing
up.
it all together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Your daily quests.
Yeah. Your daily quests. Yeah. Gamify it. I think that's the big part of it. It's just how do you make it fun for yourself?
Yeah.
Doing these things isn't always easy. In fact, it's probably never easy. But
Yeah. But it
feeling like
wouldn't feel as good if it was easy.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to
All
stop.
right.
But yeah.
Yeah, I think that is a good place to stop.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for watching. This is
Yeah.
Bald Brother
Pr-
Podcast, and yeah,
yeah.
hopefully you
Appreciate
follow
you all
through.
joining us. We'll
Yeah.
see you in the next one. Yeah.